for Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that. It's just to set that within a context, and this is the context that I want to set it in. We're working on a series here at New Church Live, which is how to change your story, and what is our story, and how do we sort of hold a story. And this is where the miracle of faith is, actually, friends. The miracle of faith to me is that it's this deeply redemptive story, and when we kind of see ourselves in that story, we become more and more of who we from all time were created to be. It's a very fulfilling story, and it's a story filled with a lot of meaning, and it's a story filled that's able to hold a lot of the curveballs in life, which we all face. And I know many of you going through them right now. Like it's able to hold the whole thing in a redemptive, transformative way. Not in a Pollyannish way, not in a sort of a glib positivity that doesn't deal with any of the challenges of life. It actually holds the challenges of life in a very, very, very powerful way that can help us to tell a story moving forward in our life that will actually bring a lot of joy and a lot of agency and a lot of community actually with it as well. So join me in this little conversation. So I was listening to an interesting study, and the study was based on this question. What they did is they took a number of people who had struggled with alcoholism, and they asked them the story, tell me the story of your last drink. And then they looked, they knew the ones that had been able to maintain sobriety, the ones that had struggled with sobriety. And what they found, and it's not a big surprise actually, was that the stories that the people shared around tell me the story of your last drink were very, very similar, because all of those stories were stories of redemption. All those stories were stories of redemption. They talked about their last drink, and they talked about that as the ending of one life and the beginning of another. But it's not disconnected, and that's really important, right? Because we all have our version of that last drink, that challenge that we've had that we've put aside, or maybe we're still struggling with it. We all have those days where we get that phone call that totally changes our life and leaves us devastated for a period of time. We all have that stuff. And so you could fill in the blank there. Tell me the story of that phone call. Tell me the story of that loss. Tell me the story of that last drink. And for people who are able to move their lives, I shouldn't say able to move their lives. I want to be really careful with that. For people who are able to find a redemptive story, there's something on the other side of that. And I want to be clear, and why I want to be so careful here is that I know this to be true. For people who are just right today in the midst of loss, there's no such thing as a redemptive story. And I think that sometimes can be a real flaw in a spiritual approach is sometimes we rush too quickly to like, okay, what's the good story? God says there's a purpose for everything, da-da-da. And I've known plenty of situations where I look at it, I think like, there's not a purpose in this kind of suffering. I don't really believe there's a purpose in all kinds of suffering. But I believe that all things, including the really hard ones, over time, God will help to bend that towards the greatest good possible. And that's known as divine providence. And within that context, we can tell a story, and it can tend to be a very redemptive story. What's the opposite of that? Well, the podcast I was listening to said it was a contagion story. So in other words, like here was this negative thing, and it became like a virus or a germ that then just continued to spread out in our lives, and it became this problem and that problem and that problem. It sort of seeded other problems in our life. Somebody who may be sober but who still struggles with being a dry drunk might be an example. They haven't quite gotten to the point of it being a redemptive story. It's really a story of contagion that, yeah, this ruined my whole life, and these are the ways in which it ruined it, and it just kept on getting worse. So those are just some interesting perspectives, friends. So the takeaway is pretty simple, which is just, share with somebody, what's the story of your last drink? And you could fill in any number of things with that. The story of your last drink, the story of like, oh, this just doesn't work. And I guess I'll share a little one with you folks. I think about, for me, the story I want to share that was sort of a last drink of sorts is the last time I really lost my temper. And I'd struggled with that a lot in my youth. And I was at my grandpa's house, and I couldn't find my car keys. And I was sitting in his little breakfast nook, beautiful glass table there, and I couldn't find them. I was so mad that I couldn't find my car keys that I smashed my fist right down through the glass table. Thankfully, I did not cut myself because it had an oilcloth on it, but shattered the table. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this isn't working. This is not good. This is not something that's redemptive at all. And if I keep living this way, it's obvious which way that goes. And who wants to live their whole life angry at the world? And so that was the story for me, and realizing like, oh, this needs to change. And that was ended up being a real bottom. But it was a bottom, and this is the strange part about redemptive stories. The bottom is in some ways the most significant part, because that's where real change starts to happen. We're no longer making excuses or justifying anything. It's just like, this just doesn't work. This is not helpful. It's not helpful to me. It's not helpful to other people. It's not helpful in trying to serve the world as God would give me to see it. Like, there's nothing good about that. And so it creates this incredible freedom at the bottom. And I think that's a good story to have. Whatever it is for you, think about it, live into it, and try to practice that pattern as best you can today. So there's your thought for today, dear friends. And with that, we're going to shift gears. And when we shift gears here at New Church Live, we come in for a very gentle landing. And the gentle landing is we take a breath, we do a little prayer, we do a little meditation, we do a little blessing, and then we say hi to folks. So actually be able to say hi to you live today on Facebook. Was not able to do that in Maine just because of the way the technology was set up in that little cabin. But we're able to do it today. So with that, dear friends, we're going to get a little breath, listen to the prayer bell, and then we'll go into meditation. So first off, big breath. The prayer bell. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dearest friends, let's take a little look-see here, see if there's any commentary. And it's very nice being home, by the way. I just enjoyed being back. Been a lot of travels, nice being back home. Linda, good morning to you, my friend. I hope you're doing quite well. And now flipping on over. There we go. Come on, Nelly. Always takes these things just a little minute here. Patty, trucking through Illinois. So Patty, that is one flat state. That's what I could say about Illinois. I'm probably in the flat part of it. So wishing you, and Patty, good morning to you too. So wishing you folks all the very best. God bless. Have a great day. Share that story with someone today. Yeah, what was it like when? Yeah, what was it? Tell me the story of your last drink. Fill in the blank, whatever it might be. And